Hello and welcome to the show today. I'm really glad you could join us because today we're talking about one of probably the best ways you can even think about when it comes to growing your business, which is influencer marketing. Look, this has exploded over the last decade or so, and it continues to get more and more of the way that people want to buy. They want to buy as recommendations from people that they know and like. And so influencer marketing has had a major play in growing a lot of businesses to multi-million dollar, even billion-dollar businesses. It can help you as well. And to dive into the topic today, we have Igor Fedenkoff. Now, Brybe was co-founded by Igor, a serial entrepreneur with a decade-long history of creating successful startups in the healthcare and hospitality verticals, improving brand image and revenue 10x. Now, Igor provides a platform for remote professionals and social media influencers looking for opportunities for brand collaborations and ongoing work gigs. Now, individuals and businesses that are interested in utilizing freelance professionals for digital creative services or influencers for social media promotions can access this platform as well. And Igor also works with investors looking to be introduced to profitable opportunities in the online marketplace sector. Igor, thanks for joining me today.
It's awesome to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I mean, you are in two really explosive areas right now. And I think we'll get a chance to talk about both the influencer and the freelancer sectors. But talk to me, I mean, like, how big is this world that we're talking about here of influencers?
It's big and small. Big because it's an ongoing population of anybody who can participate. I mean, just take Instagram, you're looking at 2 billion people around the world. On the freelancer side, some of the lovely stats that we've been getting due to the pandemic is 80% of the workforce is available for remote gigs. This is unheard of. This has never happened before. So we're looking at two absolutely fantastic spaces. One of them very well developed with very low barriers to entrance. And then the other one, the influencer marketing, I think it's still being built. It's still being wild wested, if you will.
So why is it that people should even consider influencer marketing?
Well, here's the thing. I think the concept itself is very much misunderstood still, which is why we actually created the platform with the goal to address this particular lack of education and focus it on smaller businesses and smaller influencers. Because if you bring this up with anybody right now, they probably think of larger names like the Kardashians or some basketball players or soccer players. And obviously, small business going into figuring out with their marketing businesses and where to spend their ad money, they're not considering them because hey, they don't have 750,000 for one Instagram post. However, on the flip side, the space right now is almost overly populated with nano and micro influencers, and those guys provide such a valuable and incredible service and return on ad spend. And if you ask me why, the answer is very simple. They are local, their following is very engaged, they care about their reputation, and out of their 10, 20, 50, 100,000 followers, 70, 80 to 90% is a live following that is following what they have to say, that appreciates their opinion, and which is why the smaller influencers are so much more reluctant to become advertising stars. They evaluate each opportunity, trying to keep their following growing, trying to keep their personal brand. And if you can see some of the tendencies for the upcoming year, for this year, 2022, influencers are no longer just gig employees. Influencers are becoming brands of their own. So by hiring, whether it's a smaller influencer or a larger influencer, you're actually hiring a brand that has established itself and that has the following that believes in it. So realistically, influencer marketing is a huge solution to a lot of advertising problems, especially for smaller businesses. I'll give you a very small example. One of the influencers we have on our platform is a mom from the Las Vegas area. And what she does, she reviews kid products. And obviously there are a lot of bloggers that do that, but a couple of the smaller brands were introducing their products through her. She's done the review, she only accepted one, and she did a huge write-up on the thing. And her following about 24,000 people, the company reported to us an increase in sales, an increase in visits to the site, an increase in actual product reviews following that particular campaign they run with that mom. She runs about 16% engagement rate. Just to compare, the Kardashians are probably 0 point something engagement rate. So a lot more impact, a lot more local awareness for the brands that run influencer marketing campaigns, and most importantly, a huge cut in spending. You can start running influencer marketing campaigns at $5, and I'm not kidding. So the industry is going to have a huge impact, and I think the paradigm, especially for the smaller businesses, is going to change as to where they spend their marketing budgets.
You mentioned micro or nano influencers, macro. What's the difference? I mean, obviously it's amount of following, I would think, but what are the categories of influencers, and what determines the category?
As I mentioned, this industry, despite the fact that it's well known and seems to be well established, I think it's still in its embryo state because the standards have not been set, and only a few large players, large players, have entered the space recently, like Instagram and YouTube. However, the classifications are not fully done. So if you go into multiple different companies, you will probably see similarities in their definitions, but somebody calls micro, somebody splits them in nano and micro. Probably rule of thumb would be 5 to 10,000 will still keep you within the nano size, following size. Anything between 10 up to 100, you are within the micro, which is very quickly actually changing. And then you get into mid-level, then you get into macro, then you get into celeb, and then you get into mega celeb, which is a very, very small percentage of the general influencer population. But micro and nano quantitatively comprise probably the largest percentage of the influencer providers right now in the world.
A lot of these are, let's say, influencers in their space, like in their sector, in their industry, basically.
Very much so. We run close to 340 different categories with large amount of subcategories. But if you look in the industry as a whole, the leaders obviously lie in lifestyle, fitness, beauty, and travel. And those industries, actually, travel has been hit by the pandemic the most, but the other ones have seen the rise in their popularity because, staying at home, everybody's trying to lay off the wine and get into better shape and try to get a nutritionist opinion, etc. What we have seen, and I've mentioned it many times, focusing on smaller brands and focusing on smaller niche influencers, we have seen rise in such categories as animal husbandry, for instance. You never think influencer marketing and farm together, but you'll be surprised how many different levels and verticals of products are connected to that particular segment, and how very little is the number of the influencers in the space. But they have almost 100% engaged following because they share their particular experiences, they share their particular stories, etc. So I think the general tendency right now is influencers in their niches are trying to promote themselves a lot wider and casting a wider net as to businesses they can actually work with. And those businesses in those verticals are understanding that they can now use social media for promoting their services, despite not being related, to the top 5 categories. So there's a rise in categories that have not been popularized. But on the engagement side and the financial side, these are the categories that are actually seeing a positive inflow.
So how do I get started in this sector? So like I'm on Brybe right now, and you've got a bunch of different influencers here, right? But I don't know anything about influencer marketing. So I don't even know where to start. So for example, am I looking for somebody in my sector because I'm in business, or am I looking for somebody that fits my avatar, which may be somewhere else? I mean, how do I even begin to figure out I don't know how to start, but I would think it's trying to, I don't even know. I'm going to let you take it. How do I get started from the very first step?
Okay, think IKEA. right? They're pretty much easy to put together, but you will always go through the book because it takes us in a step by step. A lot of agencies do a step-by-step paid consultation. What we have focused on, and we're actually releasing Brybe Academy next month, but right now our blog has a plethora of information. And I would honestly tell you, instead of taking the first steps, jump into the blog, into earlier articles. It will give you a basic one-on-one, whether you're a brand or an influencer who's trying to get into the space. And the second step is our filtering system. We have a superior filtering system on our site, and it's free. So you don't really have to have a paid access or anything like this. It's available to anybody and everybody on worldwide. You register as the buyer, you go into bribes, we call them, or gigs, and you're able to see the offers from all the influencers that are on the platform. On the left side, you go through a very, very deep filtration system. So it's very self-explanatory, but you look to promote, for instance, your podcast. You look to promote your show. So you look at somebody who does, social media promotions in that particular sector, and then you just drill down into the subcategories. So that would be the second step. And the third step, also very easy. You jump into that particular influencer's page, and they tell you what they do and how much they charge. So you don't have to ask a lot of questions. All of this information is at your fingertips. And they also offer preset packages of services. So you just basically click on one particular service you want to do. You're in business, you establish direct contact with that influencer, off you go.
So yeah, especially with this, it just makes it really easy because I'm able to come in, go through, figure out the right influencer that I'm looking for, access their page, the price, all the things that I have a question of are answered. And then through your platform, can I actually hire them? Can I do the entire process here?
Correct. We offer end-to-end flow. So from introduction and service to negotiation and messaging to asset exchange, ordering, payment for the services, and then you have to approve the deliverables if you like them and they're ready to go. You click OK, order is approved, influencer gets paid. And it's very simple. Like I said, on the back end, Brybe is extremely, extremely complex engine. On the front end, my 10-year-old daughter is on it, and I think she knows ins and outs of the platform better than I do. Very straightforward process. And our goal, and I think anybody's goal right now in the influencer marketing space, should be making it simple. Because the bread and butter of any business comes from their advertising. Their advertising is usually the biggest spend, and usually the first spend that gets cut if there are issues. And right now, a lot of businesses are having issues, budgeting issues, the pandemic issues, staff issues, etc. I want to make sure they understand, not even Brybe, but there are many different platforms that you can use right now in the space that offer access to influencer marketing at pennies on the dollar. But of course, use Brybe.
So I've been messing around on your site. I would never let my 10-year-old here because it's so easy to use. And the problem is I'd have a $25,000 credit card bill. I mean, literally, like I already see all these people on here that she would probably already be going to hire to do all kinds of crazy stuff for her. And I have a massive bill. So I have a mad respect for you letting your 10-year-old navigate these things. It's so easy to use. It's so awesome. And being somebody that's been interested in getting into influencer marketing, what I really like, and most of my interviews, nothing to do with the product or the service somebody sells, but this is really impressive because every question I've ever had about hiring influencers, this mitigates or answers for me or handles for me. So what about messaging? Because that's something I've always been confused about. Like, I don't know what to get them to say. They know their audience. So do you find that influencers typically like to choose their own messaging versus have it like delivered on what's being expected to be said?
I think this is where the communications still, is the most important thing for any kind of a business process. This is a two-sided marketplace. So the influencer is obviously, knowing their brand and knowing their following, they're able to come up with a presentation that will be effective. However, within the platform, they have a messaging capability with the business, with the buyer, to discuss and exchange assets. So if the buyer has some kind of a preconceived notion about how they want to run this, they definitely share this with the influencer, and vice versa. The influencer is able to give them their feedback. This is why I love my platform, and this is why our users actually, I think, enjoy being on it, because they can have a direct exchange. If you've ever seen DMs of an influencer, pull a video on YouTube, they appear at like 100 per second. So if you try to reach somebody elsewhere, unless they're looking at their screen at that very moment, they will not see your message, they will not answer your message, and you'll probably miss out. The beauty of platform like ours is that those influencers are self-registered. When you reach out to them and they're open to the dialogue, anytime you send out a message, they get a notification and they're interested in making sure they respond back, because two things are happening. We're seeing a lot more repeated business for a lot of people that are on the platform. So if you've done well, the brand obviously runs another campaign and another campaign and maybe a seasonal campaign, and they're happy to go back to you because you have shown efficiencies. On a flip side, if you look at anybody's predictions right now, the biggest thing is user-generated content. On our platform, the UGC, user-generated content, becomes the property of the brand, of the buyer, unless they agree otherwise. Why is this great? Because obviously it's used for that one particular campaign, but a very big plus, this content can be repurposed for the business needs of the buyer or the business. And that is huge, because you're not only using one-time campaign, you actually are able to reuse it and run different aspects, use it in different systems, etc. So your return on ad spend is much higher than just from, let's say, running a radio ad or a TV ad.
So is that what you see? Do you see the messages from influencers, for example, come as like paid ad spend that I can use? Or like, can I use what they put together as an ad on platforms like Facebook and Google and run it that way, versus them do it on their own platform? Because I guess I'm seeing two things here. Is like Lionel Messi, I'm looking at him on your website right now. So I can pay him to do something on his own social channels, I'm sure, or I can maybe pay him to create an asset for me that I can then use, or both.
It's actually both, but there are certain intricacies about this particular example. And it's not a secret that a lot of influencer marketing platforms boast having mega stars on their platforms. And a lot of times they're discoverable, not usable. In our particular case, Lionel Messi did not come and self-register on Brybe. This is not a secret, not a trade secret. What we have is a collaboration with their agency that represents them. And basically Brybe is then served as a showcase for their talent, for the purposes of brand collaboration. So if you're the brand interested in working with Lionel Messi, you would write a message on his profile. Our moderators will receive it to make sure that it's not, saying happy birthday for my mom. And then it will be forwarded to the company that actually represents Lionel. And then you guys are in business with mega stars that we have on our platform. But again, this is almost a direct contact, because then you're in a direct contact with their management. On the regular self-registered influencers, when you send them a request and you discuss the campaign, you don't really go on the social media, copy that, and then reuse it, because there are FTC regulations based on that, at least in the United States. But as you discuss the campaign while it's being created, this is where you agree on what assets you can and cannot use. And like I said, in most cases, by default on our platform, the order that is completed by a freelancer or influencer becomes the full property, and the rights go to the owner of the order, so the buyer, unless mentioned otherwise. So yes, ultimately you are able to reuse all of this user-generated content on your other channels or your other campaigns.
It's interesting, crazy stats here too. Like 300 million Instagram followers. Like that's crazy. So what do you think? Like TikTok, I noticed that somewhere I read that they became like the second most popular platform for influencers last year. Any accuracy to that? I mean, what do you think about TikTok blowing up?
I think TikTok is amazing. It's a great platform that also shows I joke with my friends a lot in this particular example, because the human evolution moves in spiral, and just it becomes a little bit more complicated, but on the same stuff. So we evolved from using textual information on platforms like Twitter to using larger text and graphics on Facebook, to using static images on Instagram and Snap, then stories and Periscope, and then finally the ultimate creation is the moving images on TikTok, which are quick, hopefully very graphic and understandable, graphic in a good sense, understandable and efficient to send a message, whether by the creator or by the brand that's running any kind of campaign. But that also tells you that as a business that your target audience is losing attention very quickly. So 1 minute long ad on YouTube, unless you get their attention in the first 3 seconds, is worthless. TikTok ads have proven a lot more efficient because they catch you in those 15 seconds or 10 seconds. You must deliver the message, and when you do, you run a very, very good campaign. I think TikTok is moving towards #1 because they beat YouTube last year by the results of the last year. Now it's the most viewed and most interacted platform. Obviously, let's not forget that it's still in the middle of different issues, whether they're legal or political, but they're still functioning. The user growth is growing, and I like the fact that they have been making adjustments for North American markets, because obviously if you ask anybody, any adults about TikTok, they think it's the kids dancing program, when it's not. But there were a lot of age restrictions that were not followed for many months. So right now they have addressed that as well. But I love the fact that they're trying to keep a lot of things in-house. They've just released a huge creator suite. They're supporting their top creators. So they're definitely doing a lot of stuff right. And what is most important for all of us is the fact that this is a humongous company that has grown and made a name and is validating the existence of influencer marketing yet again.
Yeah, and personally, I'm obsessed with TikTok. I don't watch TV. I don't watch anything else, but I love TikTok. It's so crazy because my attention span's about as long as TikTok videos are.
But what's the future? The dopamine. It's the dopamine.
I love dopamine, serotonin, my favorite two chemicals. But I mean, TikTok, I'm obsessed with TikTok. It's great stuff. I love this. Mm-hmm. But what's the future? Because Clubhouse, man, it hit the scene last year, right? And it ramped up. And then I've never seen a social platform gain so much momentum and then fizzle out the way that it did. Maybe it's just my perspective, but I've heard that the audio side of things, like Clubhouse is going to be big, but then Clubhouse showed maybe it's not going to be big. So what's your perception there? What do you think the future is?
There are many different things that are now actually gaining momentum. And most importantly, I think we're all going back to basics, including the consumers. However, if we're looking at some kind of a technological development, I think the Clubhouse model with an actual interaction, because Clubhouse did not allow for a lot of interaction, just audio. If you're able to interact inside of that room, and you know what I'm talking about,
yeah,
you actually, a lot of people will go there. Now, I'm talking about metaverse. Metaverse comes with a lot of really cool stuff that is already in existence, but it's very new to a lot of people. But I think the biggest problem right now is people think that metaverse requires the special gear to be able to interact with anybody, and it doesn't. So education, again, is becoming something where I think influencer marketing can come through, because influencers can show and explain to their following that, for instance, you can still dive into metaverse without having VR goggles or without having any special equipment, and you can walk around, you can interact, you can see the content. Eventually, yes, obviously technology is going to jump up there, and everybody's coming up with new goggles. There are rumors about Apple getting into the headset business. So it's going that way. It will be validated only by user participation. So the biggest thing that these companies have to overcome is for people not to think that it's too complicated. Clubhouse succeeded because it was really simple. You jump in and you talk. That's it. But the next twist and evolution will be you talk and you interact. I think Metaverse is producing the platform for that.
What do you think when you're doing influencer marketing? How do you find is the best way to measure success?
Oh, I love this question because there isn't any. And I will stand by my words, although a lot of my colleagues may not agree. One thing I can tell you, the return on the traditional ROI does not apply. And if anybody claims that it does, they're probably not telling you the whole truth. The closest metric that we have seen on a tangible side and humanly understandable side is return on ad spend. So if you can actually proportionalize the increase in your business to what you spend on that particular ad, you can see the efficiency of it. However, influencer marketing is a long game. And unless you go very niche, very targeted, smaller influencers, regional following, then you can see the results right away. Like for instance, we did with some of our health and wellness clients. But businesses that run an ongoing campaign, so let's say you don't just ask for one post, you created several different posts over the course of a few months, this is where you will see much bigger return on what you're spending. And that return can show in several different metrics depending on how you keep track of your success. Site visits, brand awareness. There are certain platforms like UpCity, for instance, that you can list your business on, and a lot of people go there. So your recommendability index goes up or down. Regular, if you know anything about SEO, anybody who has built a website for you, they have a small SEO component to that. SEO will show you if there is more traffic coming to your publications or to your website or to your product or to your videos. And then obviously, I would not expect a tremendous increase in sales right away after your first campaign, because what influencer marketing does the most is it gives awareness, something that a lot of marketing campaigns for smaller businesses don't have as a goal, because usually the goal is to just sell, and hopefully get more sales. But you have to realize that for the vast majority of people to start using your product or your service, it has to be recognizable, right? So if we think about, I don't know, detergents, first thing that comes into mind is Tide, right? The commercials is Geico just because their commercials are awesome. The insurance, it's Geico. Any kind of a project management, it's Monday.com because, oh my God, every pre-roll on YouTube is Monday.com. So the general goal of using influencer marketing is brand awareness, making sure that people know, the target audience knows who you are, what you offer, and then the subsequent steps, the subsequent return on that ad spend would be increasing sales. So it's a two-step process.
When we revert back, we talked about how to choose influencers. How important really is the reach that they have?
Very. There's a lot of fraud in the space. That's the number one problem with influencer marketing, because these days you can buy your following, you can buy interactions. All of a sudden, you know, your profile had 1,000 followers, now you have 250,000 followers. So what we always suggest is, before you go into business with any kind of an influencer or professional, any platform, including ours, you do have to do your due diligence, just like with any other project. So we are partnering with several different amazing analytical companies like Hype Auditor, for instance. You can jump on their link through our platform, just put in the handle of that influencer, and they give you like a 10-page report almost immediately on the following and the participation, how engaged the audience is. Right now, there are methods of basically figuring out whether the following was purchased or not. So there's a lot of that information coming from analytical agents like Hype Auditor, for instance. There's another company, QMocha, they're insane. They have figured out an algorithm to analyze the post for humans, for colors, how many people, what time of the day, what kind of lighting. You can actually analyze each post for that influencer and see why they're popular, and based on that, build your asset to be popular with their following. But again, due diligence. Nobody canceled it. You must do it. There are methods of doing that. Validate the following that the influencer has. Check out the campaigns they've run before. Obviously, make sure that you fit into the profile of what they do. So if they've been promoting energy drinks all the time, then your little software business probably not going to be the best match for them, etc.
As we get ready to wrap up, I didn't even get a chance, but how's the Freelancer? How's your site work with freelancers? Give me kind of a brief overview if you don't mind.
Brybe Marketplace is built as a bazaar. I don't know if you're familiar with the term, but like Middle East bazaar, if you can imagine. It's loud. There's a lot of interaction, a lot of negotiation happening at the same time. So we build a technological model which allows for different verticals of main users to coexist. So the freelancer side is extremely similar, almost the same to influencer side, but freelancer side shows you the search based on the categories of their creators, what they do, whether it's logo design or website design or UX or testing or writing, etc. So you can find freelancers based on what your needs are. And maybe you don't even know that you have these needs, but you'll find them. And then subsequently, the freelancers are able to post their portfolio. So you actually can see their work. You don't need to dive into their social media to see, like with influencers. And the categories obviously are very different, but business process wise, it's exactly the same. You go onto the freelancer side and you can hire digital professionals for any kind of digital services that you need, get your assets created, get all your stuff figured out, and then flip over to the influencer side and promote the hell out of your business.
I love it. Igor, thanks for coming on with us today. Where should everybody go to be able to check out more, to access your blog and be able to learn more about what you guys do?
Blog is number one, because this will give you a one-on-one on everything that we do. Brybe.com is obviously in the description of this podcast. If you want to ask me a question, reach out on LinkedIn. I can't promise that I'll answer right away, but I will do my best to do so. And please reference Ty's podcast so to get a better answer and a quicker answer.
Sounds good. Thanks for coming on with us today.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
So listen, if you're watching this, I can't say enough about influencer marketing. Don't listen to us. I mean, just go do some research. A basic Google search will show you the explosion of influencer marketing. And if you're really looking at the science of this, again, I think it's just a trust thing. People more and more want to work with somebody they trust. And, the best person, if you want to work with somebody, the first thing you do is you go to your family and friends and say, hey, who do you recommend for X, right? And you're going to take that person's opinion over any Google search you find. It's just the way we're built as humans. And influencer marketing is that. The only difference is you're dealing with people sometimes with 10,000 followers or 100 million followers, depending on your budget, depending on whether you want to go micro, macro, or somewhere in between. But I got to tell you, I've seen a lot of platforms. I've never seen anything like this. This is phenomenal. And I mean that to the point where this is on my list now to be able to sign up and get this going, because we want to get into influencer marketing. We tried to, we failed because we don't know how to pay them. We don't know how to negotiate. We don't know how to reach them. I mean, every single thing, we literally had an obstacle in trying to bust into the space. Brybe, and it's brybe.com. Brybe does it all. Like every single, literally, if I made a list of every barrier we ran into, it's all resolved here. You can reach them here. You can communicate. You can see their details. You can see how much money they want. You can see their reach. It's all accessible in one place. So I really recommend you check this out. Brybe.com, brybe.com. Check out the blog too. I was messing around in the blog, a ton of info. I mean, everything that I wanted to know literally is answered in different articles in Brybe. And it's really surprising on how cheap the space is to get into. So if you're thinking about, I don't know if I have the money, and Kim Kardashian makes $1 million, I see really affordable influencers to work with here. So whether you're looking for the beginning rate or the $1 million rate, it's all right here. So make sure you check out Brybe.com. That's brybe.com for everything you need to know about influencer marketing and to be able to learn about how cost effective this is to help you grow your brand and grow your business. So make sure you check out Brybe.com. That's brybe.com and be able to get started in the influencer marketing space. And don't forget, while you're here, to check out all the freelancer resources as well. This is the future of our workforce. So make sure you tap into it, because there's a lot you can do to be able to grow your business with both these assets. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure you visit Brybe.com. Have a great day.